Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, to the Vacant Wrestling Podcast. My name is Tyler. I'm going it alone this week, but you know what? It's all good because we had a phenomenal weekend of wrestling to talk about today. Apologies for last week's podcast going up a little late. Just life getting in the way a little bit. You know, I had a few weeks off from work, so I was able to really go all in on Vacant Wrestling and everything. But, unfortunately, I had to get back to work a little bit more. So I've had less time to be able to put clips out and do the podcast on time. So that's why last week was a little late. So I'm trying to get back on track this week. We had the PLE of Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy over the weekend for us to talk about today. But yeah, hope y'all had a great week. A great week of wrestling came out of this week, especially this past weekend, both in Berlin and in Denver, where NXT held their No Mercy show. Absolutely phenomenal programming. I couldn't have been happier. I couldn't have been happier with it. I was a little worried that Bash in Berlin was going to fall a little bit under. You know, I wasn't really as excited going in, but the wrestling was truly top notch. And actually, we're going to kick things off here talking about the United States Championship Open Challenge that was not at Bash in Berlin, despite what Emil and I both thought. The match was scheduled for SmackDown beforehand, which was held in Berlin in the same arena, to be fair, but it was not held at the Bash in Berlin pay-per-view, PLE, that we thought it was. However, I was right in predicting that Ludwig Kaiser, Germany's own, was going to answer LA Knight's Open Challenge. He came out to an amazing face ovation, cut a promo in German to get the crowd really hyped up. And LA Knight obliged. He gave him the match one-on-one. It was LA Knight versus Ludwig Kaiser for the United States Championship. And I just have to say, Ludwig Kaiser 1,000% sold me in this match. This was a star-making performance for Ludwig Kaiser. Truly showed that he could be the heel character that he is, but also could be an amazing, amazing babyface down the line if they decide, if he can really connect with the fans outside of Germany, that he can do it. He fired up the crowd. He was getting them into it. He was raising his arms like, let's go, like trying to get the crowd hype with him for higher spots in the match. It was really, really, really good stuff. Absolutely a star-making performance for Ludwig Kaiser. But at the end of the day, it was all but certain that LA Knight, was going to retain the United States Championship in that Open Challenge. So LA Knight defeating Ludwig Kaiser for the U.S. title in the opening match on SmackDown. And it was actually interesting to see LA Knight work heel a little bit against Ludwig. I mean, the crowd cheered for LA Knight after all was said and done, but during the matchup, they were rooting for Ludwig to win that U.S. title. But unfortunately, LA Knight got the win there. And the question is, where does LA Knight go from here? You know, he's having this open challenge. Who knows if it's going to continue? I hope it does. However, SmackDown's pool of talent is very little and limited to pull from. So hopefully we get some good open challenges out of that. Maybe some NXT guys. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe a TNA guy or two. That'd be pretty cool to see. But I think where we go next with LA Knight in terms of big stories and big feuds is actually what's happening in this best of 7 series going on SmackDown between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. I think Carmelo is going to win that series in 7. At the very last match, it's going to be tied up 3-3. I think Melo is going to win that 4th match to win the series and go on to challenge LA Knight for the United States title. And will he be successful? My prediction is no, but it'd be interesting to see if they decided to, put the title on Melo. I think he's lost way too much to LA Knight recently, even before this best of 7 series, for it to make any sense for him to beat LA Knight now. But at the same time, having him take another loss to LA Knight would be a little deflating, especially coming off of a best of 7 win over a guy like Andrade after they're putting on barn burner after barn burner of matches. They had another one on SmackDown as well. It was yet another banger. I do recommend you check that out if you did not watch SmackDown. Absolutely watch every single one of their matches they've had and keep an eye on this feud because this best of 7 is going to be great. But yeah, in terms of LA Knight and the U.S. title, Carmelo Hayes is the direction they should go in. And I don't think it will be successful. But I do think if I had to call a name right now to take the United States Championship off of LA Knight, I'm going to go with Kevin Owens. And I'm going to go with a heel Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens turning heel during this Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens feud, which we'll talk about in just a second here. I think that would be a great way for Kevin Owens to get back a title. Obviously he's not going to defeat Cody for that undisputed WWE title. There's no question that Cody's hanging on to that for the time being. But what better way to put over this heel Kevin Owens, and what better person to defeat a hot as hell babyface LA Knight at main event level, by the way. LA Knight could be a main event guy if the time was right and what was going on was right and fit the story. But that being said, I think a heel Kevin Owens versus the face LA Knight would be a really good feud. And I think that Kevin Owens would be the perfect guy to take the title off of LA Knight. So that's where that match ended up. And I was very happy with it. So cool to see Ludwig Kaiser get that shout. It is a shame that Ilya Dragunov did not get a match at SmackDown or at Bash in Berlin over the weekend, but at the same time, they hadn't really spent that time to build him. They were running Gunther versus Ilya in the live event circuit, so that's great to see. I'm glad he got to wrestle there. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a televised appearance. But at the same time, this new WWE has been very good with not with picking when the right time is for someone to have their time in the spotlight. It would have been easy for Ilya Dragunov to have been built up for a couple of months to have a one-off match with Gunther, per se, in the main event, or just thrown into this open challenge against LA Knight. But the fans hadn't had enough of exposure to Ilya Dragunov as of late on TV to be able to really get behind him. So I think it made perfect sense to keep him off for now. It's just a shame that that's how it happened. I wish he had something more. But if he had more build and more TV time right now, I'd be a little more upset. But I'm okay knowing that he's doing fine as is on the undercard of Raw. He will be wrestling this week on Raw as well. We'll get to that closer to the end of the show, but we'll talk about it later. Now, opening the Bash in Berlin premium live event, I get in this habit of calling it a pay-per-view. It's not a pay-per-view anymore. It's a premium live event. But kicking off Bash in Berlin, we actually had the WWE Undisputed Championship match. Cody Rhodes defeating Kevin Owens for the WWE title to retain. And I gotta say, the internet in particular loved this match. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really see it. I don't think it was that amazing as the internet and Twitter are saying. I saw people calling it a match of the year contender, and this match wasn't bad by any stretch. I'm not saying it was a bad match at all, but I don't think that it was. I don't think it was as good as people say it was. Maybe because the crowd was a little more hot. We're in this international show in Europe. We know how these European crowds tend to be. They tend to be a little more rowdy, a little more hot, a little more reactive toward what's going on screen, right? But I don't know. I just feel like it was growing and growing and growing, and it was trying to get into this higher gear that I feel like it never actually reached. And I'm not sure if it's a lack of chemistry between the two, or if it's just that they weren't trying to go all out at that point in time. I don't know. For me, it just felt like they were holding back in a way, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's me, but I'm just here in front of this microphone to talk into it and give you all my thoughts. So I might be against the pack, but that's fine. That's fine. We can disagree. I don't think it was a bad match in any way, shape, or form. I think it was a great way to open Bash in Berlin. Excuse me. I think it was a great way to open Bash in Berlin. But I just don't. I don't think. I just don't think it was as good as what people said. So after the match, though, Cody did try to raise Kevin Owens' hand. And Kevin Owens actually refused it. He snapped his arm down, grabbed Cody's wrist, and held Cody's arm up again. Kevin Owens looking noticeably upset after this matchup. Kevin Owens and Cody go to hug. There's a camera in Kevin Owens' face during the hug, and Kevin Owens looks at it for a second and just goes, whoa, and just smashes it out of the way, just like shoves it out of the way. Clearly still upset, still kind of low-key about it, but that's where we're at with Kevin Owens there. So it feels like we're just bubbling up to this heel turn. We're not there yet, but we're bubbling up to it. We're going to get it. It's not yet. We know how this WWE likes to take its time in terms of big story moments. And there's plenty of moments of that. There's even some on this show we'll talk about later on where it's a slow build. It makes you almost forget that that's where the direction is. So when they finally pull the trigger, you're like, oh, that's right. That is where they were supposed to be going with it. So I think we are going to get this Kevin Owens heel turn eventually. Just not quite yet. However, right after the match, Michael Cole did reiterate a point that Solo Sikoa made on this past week's SmackDown. So, first off, the Bloodline was nowhere to be found at Bash in Berlin, and there is a reason for that. It is because the family was at home, saying goodbye to Afa, and as they should, honestly. And my sincerest and deepest condolences go to the Anoa'i Fatu bloodline, the entire bloodline, for their loss, as well as Psycho Sid. We lost Psycho Sid this week as well. But that was why the bloodline was not there. So Solo is in a pre-recorded videotape or a video package on SmackDown saying that he wants the winner of Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. And right after Cody won, Michael Cole on commentary said that Solo Sikoa called a shot. So it looks like they are going to go back to Cody versus Solo again for some reason. But it also doesn't seem like they're fully through with this Kevin Owens pursuit of the WWE Championship. I don't think we're done with that just yet. I think we're going to get more of it. But we are going to get this pit stop with Solo Sikoa as well. So we'll see how this juggling of the two feuds goes. Maybe KO will grow a little more resentful because they're continuing to skip him over. He might say, hey, I came this close to defeating Cody Rhodes, but I didn't do it. I came this close. And they said as much on commentary as well. And a couple of moments in the match where Kevin Owens went to attack Cody's knee, who said it wasn't injured, but apparently, based on how he was acting in the match, it was kind of he was acting as if it was injured. So, there were moments where KO almost went for those moves that would have probably given KO the win in all reality, but he didn't do it because he's too good of a friend to Cody and respects him too much and doesn't want to win the title like that. So it's clear that they want to prove the point that Kevin Owens can win the title and beat Cody Rhodes, but he chose not to. And what would happen if they put him in that situation again where he could choose to pull out all the stops to defeat Cody Rhodes? And I think that's the story we're going to get for a little while. And it's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued to see where that goes, but that's where we're at with that opening match. It was phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to where they go there on SmackDown. They're continuing to cook with this will they, won't they, Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes story, and the promos that they cut on SmackDown. My God, I just smacked my microphone. But seriously though, the reason I did is for good reason, because you got to check those out, because it's two of both of these guys' best work, both Cody and Kevin Owens in this current run. Seriously, Cody's starting to. It was almost like Cody was riding the line. They want you to think both guys could realistically turn on the other. So they had Cody kind of riding this heel line as well, being like, "I'm so successful, and you're jealous of my success." But Kevin Owens is just like, "Nah, man. Like I don't want this. I really didn't want this, and now you're putting me in a position where now I have to want it, and that's not going to work out well for you." So I'm loving it. That's where we're at with the WWE title. Moving on to the next match, we had the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship as Alba Fire and Isla Dawn unsuccessfully defended the titles against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Bianca and Jade pick up the win, despite my prediction saying the otherwise. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill win back the women's tag team titles. And the match was fine. It wasn't anything amazing, but it was good. It was good. Nothing in particular that I remember too much besides Fire and Dawn's double team move is really cool. Y'all got to check it out. But yeah, I made the call on the last podcast earlier this week with Emil that I thought Fire and Dawn were going to retain the titles, and I thought it was going to plant the seeds for this breakup angle between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. But it all depended on whether or not WWE was ready to do that or not. And the more this week went on, the more I heard more discourse online and watching the show and just in general talking and being a part of the wrestling community, I got more of a sentiment and more of a feeling that Bianca and Jade were gonna win the titles back. So I was regretting that decision as the week went on. However, I stuck to my guns. I want Fire and Dawn to succeed. I think they're an amazing tag team. I hope that they are a team that should stay together for the long term in this current state of WWE. But unfortunately, they did not pick up the win here. So Bianca and Jade win. The titles are back on them. All I can say is I'm glad that now I know for a fact the effort is going to be continued in this women's tag team division, because we know that the reason why they put so much effort in is so it looks good, and because Bianca and Jade are there, so it needs to matter when they actually conquer the division and win the titles. So it's cool. I'm happy about it. Good for them. Clearly they're not ready to turn Jade heel yet. Clearly they're not ready to build Bianca up yet as well. So we're just gonna wait till it's the right time, and that's kind of where we're at with a lot of stories in this current WWE, and that's great. Honestly, it's fine. We have stories that are going on now. We have stories that we're paying off. That we have stories that already paid off, and we're feeling the aftermath. And we're building to new ones that eventually we're gonna get to once they get enough, they simmer enough, once they bubble up enough, and once we have the space to be able to lift the lid on that pot and let all the steam, the vapors just fill the kitchen. You know what I mean? That's where we're at with it, and I'm very happy with the current state and the women's tag division. If the women's tag team division is doing fine, then WWE as a whole is doing great. That's how I look at it. So good for Bianca and Jade. Congrats to Fire and Dawn for an awesome run. It was all but brief, but they were everywhere with these belts. They were on NXT, they were on Raw, they were on SmackDown. They truly did what the WWE initially said they wanted to do with these women's tag team championships, and I can only hope that they continue moving forward during this reign of Bianca and Jade and afterwards as well. So very cool stuff. We got a strap match next on Bash in Berlin. It was CM Punk defeating Drew McIntyre in the strap match, and I just have to say, it might be a hot take, might be controversial, might not be. I don't know, because after this weekend, I saw a lot of the same sentiment. I think WWE needs to just axe the whole strap match stipulation. Like, I don't feel like it makes much sense. I get the point of wanting to tie the two guys together and connect him by the strap and use the strap as a weapon and all that stuff, but the tapping each of the corners thing and the light posts on the corners, it was too much for me. It was too distracting. I know they explained the rules, but even... And I only learned, first off, I must have missed when they explained the rules when I watched the show. Because I was on Twitter and I was then posting that I was confused when, like, how the lights were supposed to work. First I saw, Drew, first I thought the lights were all supposed to be red. And when somebody, Drew or Punk, tapped the buckle, the light would turn from red to green. And it would go that way all the way around until all four lights were green. But no, apparently each person had a different colored light. And they put Drew with the red light and Punk with the green light, but it just didn't... It was too much. It was too messy. It was way too messy for me. I was like trying to figure that out while watching the match, while taking things in. The light posts were distracting enough, honestly. I thought they were distracting enough. They couldn't have like CGI'd anything in there. They couldn't have just had like a floating... or even like a bird's eye view cam of like when they in the elimination chamber, when they have the bird's eye view cam and they have the spotlight going around to see who's coming in, just like have a bird's eye view cam above the ring and just have like a green dot or something, some kind of indicator on each corner, and just say Punk tap that corner, Punk tap the next one, Punk tap the next one and the next one. Instead of this whole, like, oh, you tapped it, gotta turn the green light on, and you go to the next one, turn the other green light on. And then there's another part of it where it's a sequence, but it depends, like, the sequence gets interrupted if your opponent touches you, but if you touch your opponent during the sequence doesn't break. And that just doesn't make much sense either. Because, like, the sequence is broken either way. It's just a matter of who broke it. Either way, it's broken. So, and it especially happened at the end of the match, and I was kind of annoyed by the end of the match because of this. So, Punk wins the match, as we know, and he goes to tap the corners, and he taps one corner, and then he taps another corner, notices Drew start to get up, and he picks up Drew and GTS's him. And then he continues to the third corner, and I'm like, wait a second, he broke the sequence. He touched Drew McIntyre. But no. Drew McIntyre didn't touch Punk, so the sequence was not broken, even though the sequence was broken. So I'm sitting there the whole time, like, what is happening? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I just feel like they need to either scrap the stipulation as a whole, or they need to rewrite the damn rules. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't see the point. But anyway, Punk got the bracelet back as well. He went to grab Drew by the wrist. And at one point, he went to go and hit this. He went to grab the bracelet, realized that Drew was waking up a bit, hit the GTS. So that was cool. He learned his lesson from the first time. Worry about the bracelet later. Focus on kicking his ass now, and then grab the bracelet when you've already kicked his ass. So that was good. So eventually, though, at the ending stretch when he went to go and tap all the corners, to win the match, he grabbed the bracelet off of Drew's wrist and put it on. But it was also a little weird because Drew had the bracelet in his trunks and pulled them out of his crotch and then held them up, and then he went to kiss them after they were in his pants. Yeah, you can't write this shit, y'all. You really can't write this shit. So they're fighting over these beads that were literally in Drew's pants. God, I love wrestling. I love wrestling. Yeah, man. So that's how it ended. So Punk went to grab the bracelet off of Drew, taps one corner, taps another one. Oh, Drew's waking up. GTS continues to tap the third and taps the fourth. And with that, CM Punk has defeated Drew McIntyre. It was Punk's first singles victory in over a decade. It was actually Punk's first strap match, probably ever, but his first stipulation match in a decade, because technically the last match was a one-on-one, but Seth was the guest referee, so that's one thing. Yeah, so it's cool. We got Punk getting the win. You know, it seems like, and we're just to talk about where we go from here. First off, it makes sense that CM Punk needed to win that. It totally made sense. I get it. The end goal, it's pretty obvious that the end goal for this feud is Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood in October. And here we are at the end of August, beginning of September. We're on the second match in this feud. You know, Drew got the last win. I'm going to say Punk gets the win. I said going in, Punk gets the win here. He did. And now we build to the rubber match in Hell in a Cell, hopefully, at Bad Blood. But, however, I believe Kathy Kelly asked CM Punk where his next steps were going to be after his win over Drew McIntyre. And CM Punk basically called his shot for Gunther's World Heavyweight Championship. And said that he was coming after the World Heavyweight Championship, and that he's over this whole fight with Drew. Now, here's where I think we go, because I do think we get a CM Punk World title match. We have a season premiere of Raw coming up a week from today. Today is September 2nd. Happy Labor Day, everybody, as well. And tonight we have the first edition of Raw with Joe Tessitore on commentary with Wade Barrett. And then next week, we have the season premiere week of Raw and SmackDown. Raw will be on USA, SmackDown will be on USA, and NXT will be on USA as well. That will be the whole... So next week is this whole season premiere week. What better way to cap off the season premiere of Raw than to have a World Heavyweight Championship match between Gunther and CM Punk? It might be crazy, but here's where I go. Here's my rationale, right? We don't have another PLE between now and Bad Blood. Bad Blood is the next PLE. And in my opinion, the end goal has to be CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre at Bad Blood in a Hell in a Cell match. So to get there, I think that Drew doesn't show up on Raw tonight because he lost to CM Punk. He's probably dejected. He doesn't want to be seen right now. Drew's ego is massive. We have to remember how massive Drew McIntyre's ego is. So he's at home probably. He's going to be off TV. This allows CM Punk to come out tonight on Raw, call out Gunther, and say, I want your title. And Gunther obviously is going to accept it. So we're going to get Gunther versus CM Punk. Whether it happens on the season premiere of Raw or it happens on another Raw in the coming weeks, eventually we get CM Punk versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title, and Drew McIntyre interferes and costs CM Punk. And it's a full circle moment. After months of Drew McIntyre constantly trying to say, I'm over CM Punk after WrestleMania, you know, he's hurt anyway. I can't beat his ass anyway, but he knows if he's healthy, I will beat his ass. So I'm going for the World Heavyweight title. So Drew is going after the World Heavyweight title again at Clash at the Castle, at Money in the Bank, and he gets this close every time. But who's there to stop him? CM Punk. Now CM Punk has Drew McIntyre taken out of the picture. And CM Punk now wants the World Heavyweight Championship. He calls out the champion. He gets the title match. And he's this close until Drew McIntyre stops him. Drew McIntyre comes back. Drew McIntyre gives Punk a taste of his own medicine, keeping Drew McIntyre away from the World Heavyweight title for so long. Drew's going to do the same thing to you. And from there's no other direction to go than Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood. Just a thought, but, they wouldn't have CM Punk talk about this World Heavyweight title for nothing. I really don't think they would take the title off of Gunther that soon. I don't think they would have CM Punk take the title off of Gunther that soon. I think Punk knows, and Punk has made clear throughout this WWE run that he's not about taking out up-and-coming talent. He wants to put over the up-and-coming talent. He doesn't want to be the guy to beat the up-and-coming talent and be the part-time or the legend guy that's going over these full-time up-and-coming stars. And up-and-coming, but I mean, like, Gunther is a star. We know that, right? But, like, Gunther's star is still fragile enough to where if he takes a loss, he's going to get damaged by it at the right time, under the right circumstances. And a loss to CM Punk would not really make any sense for Gunther. So you have Gunther retain over Punk because Drew costs Punk. You can't just not have Punk go after the title after he talked about it, unless you have Drew stop him on the way. But I really don't think it. I really don't think that happens. I think they want to tell this story of now Drew is going to do the same thing to Punk that Punk did to Drew all through the spring. So that sets up Bad Blood Hell in a Cell, and then from there you pay off that feud. Now that I've talked about that one enough, let's jump into the next match on the card. It was a mixed tag team matchup between the Terror Twins and Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio of the Judgment Day. And the Terror Twins got the win here. And as much as I love the new Judgment Day and I want them to succeed, it made all the sense in the world to have the Terror Twins win here. After losing the World Heavyweight title in Damian Priest's regard, and after losing her one shot that she had, her first shot that she had since coming back at the Women's World Championship in Rhea Ripley, this was the time for Terror Twins to get some heat back. So first off, the match was a lot of fun. There were a lot of great spots in it. It was a lot of fun seeing the interplaying between Damian and Liv, and also between Dom and Rhea. Obviously, Dom and Rhea have more history there. Dom's trying to actively avoid Rhea at all costs, and eventually he does get stuck in there at one point. There were some good spots. There were some really great spots in this match as well. But it did everything it needed to. It was a lot of fun. Terror Twins are over as all hell. It's so awesome to see new stars being built. Rhea was already there, but Damian Priest is now a star, and I love it. I love it. He seems like such a nice guy, humble guy, genuine human being, an amazing guy. So all the power to him, and I hope he gets another World Heavyweight title run in the future. But the end goal, it seems like, through all of this mixed tag, yes, Rhea probably is going to get the Women's World title back. Yes, we're going to get Finn versus Damian. But the end goal has to be Rhea versus Dominic, right? Like an actual one-on-one match between Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, right? Like, it just feels like this is the story you have to do it with. And if, Dominic always talks about, outside of WWE, outside of the cameras, outside of Raw and TV and WWE TV, he always talks about how he loves Eddie Guerrero and wants to emulate Eddie Guerrero as a character, and he's got the mullet now, he's got the mustache, he's got a lot of what classic Eddie Guerrero had during the Attitude Era. And the Rhea and Dominic relationship is giving very much the Chyna Eddie Guerrero relationship. It's not the same, but it's very similar, right? And eventually we did get Chyna versus Eddie. What better way to pay homage to Eddie Guerrero than having Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley one-on-one? I think that'd be really cool. I think that'd be really great. And I think that we're in a point now as a society and as a wrestling community and WWE as a company, I think all parties involved are ready for this match. And I think at this point, it's kind of undeniable. Like, the networks are going to be asking for it at some point, I'm sure. And it makes sense because, like, obviously people don't in business and companies and big multi-billion-dollar companies don't want to see a man beat up a woman. But you look at how Dominic Mysterio has been built up as this coward, as this sneaky, snively little guy, right? And he hides behind women to get by. He used to hide behind Rhea. Liv's always helping him out of dangerous situations right now. He's not the type of guy that would be beating up a woman. So this would be the time to have an intergender match, in my opinion. And Rhea versus Dominic would be the one. I think there's a no-brainer there. The question is, will they do it? But like I was saying, back to this tag team match is just the start of this feud. You know, Judgment Day did come out. Carlito, JD, Finn, everybody in Judgment Day came out and helped to interfere, but it didn't work. At the end of the day, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest get the win over Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. And I do think we build to Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley again, maybe at Bad Blood. But I definitely think that we build to Damian Priest and Finn Balor at Bad Blood as well. And maybe we get some kind of demon variation with Finn. You know, we might get that. Maybe. I think it'd be kind of cool, depending on how they want to book it. But we'll see how that goes. So, a solid match. The crowd was hot for that too. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Now the main event, the main event of Bash in Berlin. Let's talk about it, man. This was one of my favorite matches of this year. Seriously. You want to talk about match of the year contender? This match right here fucking cooked. Gunther defended the World Heavyweight Championship against Randy Orton in the main event of Bash in Berlin. Now, obviously going into this match, we were promised that we were going to revisit Gunther and Randy Orton at some point, but we weren't sure when. We weren't sure if it was going to actually be a high-stakes match, or it was just going to be like, you know, they happen to be in a situation where they can book this match after a draft. They're on the same show. And it's like, oh, remember this? Remember Gunther beat Orton at King of the Ring, but it wasn't really legit. It wasn't really a clean victory. No, we got a world title match in the main event of a giant international pay-per-view. PLE. I did it again. Premium live event. And it was great. It was really awesome. The crowd was hot for Gunther. The crowd was hot for Randy. I was worried that they were going to boo Randy Orton. I was very worried they were going to boo Randy Orton. But Randy came out. They're singing his song very loud, too. Like, they loved Randy's song and they loved CM Punk's song. But they were singing Randy's song. They popped heavy when Gunther came out as well. And during the introductions, it was a really cool moment. Samantha Irvin, by the way, once again, absolutely phenomenal. My favorite ring announcer of all time, period. My favorite ring announcer of all time, period. I will go to war with that belief. I will go to war with it. But she's handling the introduction of Randy Orton. She goes to move over to introduce Gunther, and you see a hand creep up from the side of the camera, just go. And the camera pans over, and Ludwig Kaiser is there, waiting to have the mic passed to him by Samantha Irvin. So she passes him the microphone, and he introduces Gunther. And it was amazing. It was amazing. He did it. He started in German, and then he did the whole spiel that he does. Ladies and gentlemen, I demand all your gratitude. Dude, so good. So good. The vibes were up at that moment for me. I was like, let's freaking go. And that match delivered. Was it a car crash of a match in any stretch? Was it super chaotic? Did it have a lot of high spots? No, it had a couple of high spots. It had a couple of good spots. But I don't think it was, groundbreaking. I don't think it was like there were no crazy dives. There was no, weapon spots, obviously. It was a clean one-on-one match, but it was just classic, good old-fashioned wrestling. Good old-fashioned wrestling. And Randy Orton is one of the smoothest in-ring workers I have ever seen. You can see how safe this man is with other wrestlers. Man, Randy Orton was never my favorite wrestler. He hovered up in my top few guys, but my God, you can't deny that this guy is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, like in-ring workers of all time. The track record that he has, the longevity of his career, the consistency of this guy's moveset. And this guy's pulling out new moves all the time, and he's doing crazy high spots all the time. And the amount of people he's wrestled that, like, I'm not saying I keep track of people that get injured by certain wrestlers, right? But Randy Orton, I can't recall too many people that got injured in a match with Randy Orton. I really can't. Unless there's third parties involved, weapon spots or bad landings or anything like that. Like, Randy Orton is one of the safest workers in wrestling, period. Man, and he's so smooth. You can just see I want to say it looks easy, but obviously I know it's not easy. None of this is easy, especially at the level that Randy Orton and Gunther are putting on. But my God, the scoop slam spots, like the vintage Orton spots, Orton is in his prime. I really believe that Randy Orton is in his prime right now. And it's insane to consider that. But yeah, man, I'm really glad. And I heard he signed on a new deal as well. It's extended to, I think, 2028, 2029. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. If there's anybody that deserves to break the World Heavyweight Championship record, the world title win record in wrestling, beat Ric Flair's record, I do think John Cena should break it, but I think Randy Orton should break John Cena's not too long after. I really don't. I think Orton absolutely deserves it. I believe he's tied right now. Him, Cena, and Ric Flair are all tied, I think. Could be wrong. Don't really know. But my God, man, I love Randy Orton. He's so good. He's so good. And the ring psychology of Gunther as well. Gunther matched Randy Orton at that level, that high caliber work ethic, that work level, the work rate. There were some spots where I saw there were video packages where they were airing where Gunther was doing exercises with his neck, and he was like, yeah, like Orton's got the RKO. I want to make sure I have the strongest neck that I can. So when Orton grabs my neck and tries to thrust me down, I'll stay up. I'll stay up. And it showed in this match. There were a couple of spots where Orton went to hit the RKO and Gunther was ready. Gunther was ready for it. Gunther was ready for it. And it was really, really awesome to see. Like, not only are you showing that you're watching the product, you're watching Randy Orton, you know Randy Orton's moves, but you're showing that you're training specifically to not get caught by that move. And then in the match, he goes to hit the move and you counter it multiple times. That is wrestling. That is wrestling psychology right there. We don't always get this high level of psychology, so it's really awesome to be able to see it and appreciate it. And with Randy Orton, man, like, he's so beloved at this point in time. I know that we want to see this Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes feud, but can you turn Randy Orton heel at this point? Like, that is a genuine question. That is a genuine question. Can you turn him heel right now? The crowd loves Randy Orton a lot. So I don't really know if you can turn him heel right now. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see where the Randy Orton heel turn goes, especially with Kevin Owens on SmackDown right now, and he's in the middle of a will he won't he turn heel story. It's gonna be a while till we get Randy Orton turning heel and feuding against Cody Rhodes, if we get it, if we actually do end up getting it. But my God, so Gunther retains the World Heavyweight title, and in an interesting manner as well. So Gunther didn't just pin Randy. He didn't make Randy tap. He put Randy in the sleeper hold multiple times over a few minutes, and eventually Orton fought out a couple of times, but eventually Gunther locked it in so deep, wrapped the legs around, had him on the ground, and eventually Randy Orton passed out, and the ref had to call the bell for that. So Gunther knocked out Randy Orton, put Randy Orton to sleep to retain the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of a PLE. That is huge. You don't see many finishes like that closing out a PLE. But with Gunther, you absolutely do. And good for Gunther, man. He absolutely has deserved this. This is what the Intercontinental Championship is all about. He took that Intercontinental Championship, not only made it as glorious as it was in the past, right? Made it that stepping stone to the World Heavyweight Championship. He got to experience that for himself. He got to win the Intercontinental Championship. It built him up to the main event to go in the King of the Ring tournament, win the tournament, and then win the World Heavyweight Championship. And that is what the Intercontinental Championship is all about. Good for Gunther. Good for Randy Orton. Good for Gunther. And closing out that show, was Bash in Berlin my favorite show of the year? Probably not. But was it bad? Not at all. Not at all. And there hasn't been a single WWE Premium Live event this year that I've watched and been like, that was bad. Not even one. And I haven't even considered it. The worst PLE of the year is probably just okay at best. Was this one the worst? Maybe. Only because only because there wasn't too much happening on a story perspective. Wrestling, from a wrestling standpoint, it brought it. But from a storyline perspective, not too much happened. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Not every PLE needs to have a whole lot of story. That's what the big four pay-per-views are for, right? Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Those are for the big stories. Those are for the big storyline payoffs. Something like this is a nice little show to get some good, meaningful wrestling matches, high-stakes matches that might not need as much story to push it along. So, Bash in Berlin was a success in my eyes, and I think WWE would agree. I give the show a solid B. B, I think. Match of the night, I think my favorite match was the mixed tag. I think it was the mixed tag. I'm sorry, no. I just talked a whole lot about Orton and Gunther and just almost was about to bury it. No, Gunther and Orton was my match of the night. Very closely behind was the mixed tag match. Sorry, that's my match of the night. Now moving into the next night, last night in fact, NXT had a show called NXT No Mercy. And if you wanted more story from Bash in Berlin, I hope you watched NXT No Mercy. Because this one had the wrestling and the story. So let's get into that. So, opening up NXT No Mercy, we had the NXT Tag Team Championship match as Chase U, Andre Chase and Ridge Holland defended their titles against Axiom and Nathan Frazer. Now, Chase U haven't been the champions for too long, right? Ridge Holland and Andre Chase won the titles on a recent NXT episode. And right afterwards, Axiom and Nathan Frazer wanted a rematch for the titles. And I believe it was the NXT just after NXT Heatwave back in July, right after Money in the Bank. And so right after Andre Chase and Duke Hudson, I believe, failed their opportunity at the tag titles, Ridge Holland was like, I pulled some strings and I got us a tag match. And then they won. And there's been this whole story of Ridge Holland who had a mean streak. He had a bad temper. He turned on a couple of people. He was a bad dude. And he wanted to be accepted in Chase U. And everyone at first was like, no, I don't trust you at all. I don't trust this guy one bit. But then Andre Chase was like, no. We give everyone a shot here at Chase U. So they gave Ridge Holland a shot against the wishes of Riley Osborne and Duke Hudson. And eventually Ridge Holland won over the rest of Chase U. He got Thea Hale the women's title shot she had at Great American Bash, I want to say, against Roxanne Perez. And he got Duke Hudson a North American title shot against Oba Femi. And Riley Osborne went over to TNA and was competing for the X Division title. Like, Chase U was doing great with Ridge Holland there. So they were starting to fall in love with this guy a little bit. I was starting to fall in love with the idea of Ridge Holland and Chase U. When they won the tag team titles, I was so happy because I was at NXT Heatwave with Yusuf. And we got to see the match between Chase and Duke Hudson against Axiom and Nathan Frazer. And I really wanted Chase U to win there. That match was fucking fantastic. It was great. And so when they lost, I was like, oh man, I'm bummed. But then Ridge Holland got him a shot and I was like, that's it. They're going to win now. And they did. And I was like, okay, Ridge is officially 100% in Chase U. And I was so excited about it. And like I mentioned earlier, so I got to say it first. Like I mentioned earlier, WWE and NXT love to have these will they, won't they stories. And they wait just until you get comfortable thinking they won't. But then they do it. So Ridge Holland and Andre Chase lost the titles back to Axiom and Nathan Frazer. So Axiom and Frazer are the tag team champions once again. And I thought they were going to lose because they were kind of going through some tough times between the two of them. You know, they were kind of like beefing for a little while, but they resolved their beef, came together, now stronger than ever, and won the titles back. Good for Axiom and Frazer. They don't click for me. I probably won't care moving forward, but it's fine. Because after the matchup, just when I thought that Ridge Holland was comfortably in Chase U, Ridge Holland turned on Chase U and attacked Duke, attacked Riley, and hit Andre Chase with a pretty gnarly DDT brainbuster type move on the announce table, which sent Andre Chase out of the building to the hospital on a stretcher with a neck brace, all that stuff. They went all out with this. And it was a fire way to start the show. The match was great. The turn was perfectly executed, and it was just the time. I was just then forgetting that Ridge Holland was initially not supposed to be in Chase U. And then I was like, and then I saw it happen, and I was like, damn it, why did I forget about this? Why did I not remember this? It's perfect, dude. It's perfect storytelling. Perfect. And I'm so excited to see where they go with Ridge Holland and Chase U now, because this has all been a vehicle to get Ridge Holland over as a big heel, because when he first came back down to NXT, it was tough to get over for him. The fans couldn't really connect with him. They were booing him because they didn't want to see him. You know, not because he's a bad dude, because they didn't want him on their TV, or at least it seemed like from my perspective. And then eventually they had him join Chase U. They got him over as a face, and then he turned, and now he's a big heel. My assumption is Andre Chase is going to be written off TV for a while. Maybe they go through a story where Ridge destroys everyone in Chase U, starting from Riley and Duke, and then works his way to Andre and beats him. Or maybe they have Ridge just kind of go off on his own and go on a tear on NXT. But I feel like NXT right now has a very large pool of heels to pull from, and not a whole lot of baby faces. So I'm a little intrigued by this decision. And I'm almost thinking maybe we just have Ridge just go on his own right away and keep the Chase U on their own, because if you have Chase U and Ridge, it almost feels like Ridge needs to win. And I feel like I said, with a lack of strong faces and a lot of heels, maybe Chase U needs the win. So I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. But moving on to the next match, I do have some gripes. Unfortunately, I don't want to have gripes, but I do. NXT Championship match. This was a non-title match between an NXT talent, Wes Lee, and a TNA talent, the TNA X Division champion. He just won the X Division championship on Friday before the show on Sunday, and that is his former tag team partner in the Rascals and MSK, Zachary Wentz. And I have to, first off, I have to take this time to complain about the heel Wes Lee character, because the turn was executed wonderfully. It truly felt dastardly. The way he clocks Trey Miguel, the way he low blowed Zach as he's like, "What are you doing? That's your brother. What are you doing?" Amazing stuff. And then he goes on next week and he cuts this like weird promo that almost felt like a babyface promo, that delivery-wise felt like he had the same delivery, so he still kind of sounded like a babyface Wes Lee. And it was all about, you abandoned me, you left me here. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm with you, Wes, but I'm not supposed to be with you. I'm supposed to not like you. I don't like that. And then the next week, it starts building into this, well, you're a TNA wrestler, and I'm an NXT superstar, blah, blah, blah. No. That is not the story to be telling for this. This is not the story to be telling for this. How about you guys, I was excited to bring you here to NXT. I was doing you guys a favor, bringing you to the bigger stage of NXT. You can still lean into the story, but make it more about Wes Lee, not about, NXT is better than TNA. Be like, I brought you back into NXT after you got shunned out of the company. You should be thanking me. I brought you back into this space. And instead, you're losing me matches. You're the reason why we lost the tag titles. You're the reason why we're in this position. Maybe you're the reason why my career has taken so long to get going. It was only until you all left that I became the greatest NXT North American champion of all time. But instead, NXT greater than TNA. Blah, blah, blah. God, it's so bad. Not a fan of this. This is like the worst story they have on NXT, period. Because it just makes no sense. And I don't care about heel Wes Lee anymore after they had this amazing turn against the Rascals. So, and to top it all off, Zachary Wentz beats Wes Lee. Why? Why, man? I mean, I get it because of all the I get it because of the anti-TNA rhetoric that Wesley has been spewing, and it would not look great during this partnership for Wesley to talk shit about TNA and then beat a TNA talent clean. But like, if they avoided that, if they avoided crossing into any of that territory in rhetoric, we could have had Wesley get the win. I will say it was cool because Wes went to go and use a chair on Zachary Wentz, but then Trey Miguel comes out and stops it, which is great because going into this, I was like, what's going on with Trey Miguel? Like, why is he so like background in this story? Like, why do they refuse to like acknowledge that Trey Miguel is in the picture still? So it was good to see that. And then after the match, Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel were expressing their desires in pursuing the NXT Tag Team Championships as MSK or as the Rascals. So that's cool. That's great. Honestly, I fully expected Wesley to beat Zachary Wentz here, and for that to be it. Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel to go back to TNA and call it a day, right? But no, instead, they're gonna stick around. And hell, Zachary Wentz might be a double champion. He might be NXT Tag Team Champion and TNA X Division Champion. They might have a rematch with Zachary Wentz and Wesley and have Wesley win the X Division title. We don't really know, but for right now, what I'm seeing, it's doing nothing but taking me out of this Wesley heel character. And it's making me start to regret wanting a heel Wesley in the first place. Because in the back of my mind, I did want a heel Wesley. But maybe he's just not equipped to be a good heel. There are some guys that can't do it. Maybe Wes can't do it. That's not a knock against him. He's trying it. That's what NXT is for. You know, you're trying all this out. It worked for Roxanne. It worked for certain people. You know, Roxanne, it worked for her really well. She's doing amazing, and we'll talk about her in a second. But maybe it just doesn't work for Wesley, and that's totally okay. That's totally okay. So we'll see where they go. I really hope that they figure it out with this heel Wesley character. But for right now, I'm not feeling too great about it. Speaking of not feeling too great, let's go into the Women's North American Championship match. Kalani Jordan, the champion, defeating Wendy Chu to retain the Women's North American Championship. Now, the match was fine. There was nothing super crazy about it. Did exactly what it needed to do. You know, we were building Wendy Chu for weeks to challenge Kalani Jordan for the Women's North American Championship. Fine, that makes sense. You had the match with Kalani and Tatum in the middle of it, in the build, to get to Wendy and Kalani. Fine, right? Cool. Wendy's at that level. Wendy's been around for NXT for a long time. She arguably should have been a champion by now. But at the end of the day, Kalani Jordan got the win. And Tatum Paxley attacked Wendy Chu after the match and left the doll in the ring. So clearly we got this story between Tatum and Wendy moving forward. Maybe I don't care too much about that, mostly because since I've been tuning into NXT, Tatum's kind of been a background player. And Wendy Chu has just came back. Literally just started coming back when I started watching NXT more often. Kalani Jordan, the reason why I say not great about the whole thing is because Kalani Jordan, she's been an okay first women's North American champion. She was a good pick for it. Do I think she was the right pick? Probably not. She's amazing in the ring. She's seriously one of the better in-ring talents in the NXT women's division, but the problem is she needs more practice on the microphone. I watch her promos and I can hear her, I can see her reading. No, I can hear her as if she's reading the script in her head, like she had a script that she rehearsed, and then was just like deer in the headlight. Like the way she's delivering these lines just sounds like it's a script that she's just reading it off a paper or off a teleprompter or whatever, and it's not believable. It's not believable to me, and it's hard to connect with someone that doesn't feel like an organic human being. And Kalani just doesn't do it for me in that regard right now. She's a phenomenal talent, and I'm not totally against this title reign, but the more I see it, the more I'm like, oh, we could have had Sol Ruka, we could have had Lash Legend, we could have had Fallon Henley, we could have had somebody arguably more ready for the spotlight. Thea Hale would have been a great North American champion for the women right now. But Tatum, wow. Tatum will be good in the story with Wendy moving forward. There we go. We'll save it that way. And Kalani Jordan hopefully will get a stronger challenger than Wendy Chu moving forward, because this didn't feel like it was built up enough. Maybe Jada versus Kalani would be cool. I really thought they were going to give it to Sol Ruka at the beginning of this whole Women's North American Championship thing. So maybe they'll go Sol Ruka, Kalani Jordan as like we're friends, but I want your title. And so eventually, maybe Sol will just get the better of Kalani Jordan. Maybe this is a situation like the opposite of Wes Lee. Maybe Kalani would be a better heel than a face. Maybe if we turn her heel and she tries that out, she might be better as a heel than as a face in terms of her delivery. But we'll see. That's kind of where I'm at with all this. I give my thoughts. We'll see where it goes, and we move on. Moving on to the NXT North American Championship match. Oba Femi, the ruler of NXT, defeats Tony D'Angelo to retain the NXT North American Championship. And this match was pretty solid, man. This match is pretty good. Another banger by Oba Femi, and no surprise there when you have Tony D'Angelo on the opposite side of the ring from this man. Tony was a perfect person to go after Oba next. This has felt like a big test for Oba Femi, and once again, he passes with flying colors. There was the spot where Tony D'Angelo kicked out of the powerbomb, the Oba Femi powerbomb. That was freaking great. That was great. I love how big of a deal it felt like when they were like, no one's ever kicked out of that before. And I also love that eventually Oba Femi did get the win with 2 powerbombs back to back. Makes perfect sense. You can't pin him with 1, so you hit him with 2. Perfect common sense, I guess. Perfect ring awareness, perfect ring psychology. It was an amazing next test for Oba Femi. He continues to shatter expectations. I have no other notes. I don't know who he goes after next. Maybe we run back. Maybe we run Oba and Joe Hendry. Maybe we run Oba and Tony again. Screw it. We didn't get a whole lot of story with the feud. Let's add some story in there. We had the story of like Oba going into D'Angelo's restaurant and stuff, but I think we could get more out of this story. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. At the end of the day, I think Oba Femi will hold this North American Championship for a very long time. He's holding it for as long as it takes Javon Evans to get ready, is my opinion. I don't think Javon Evans is ready for to be a champion just yet, but he's the perfect guy in my mind to take the title off Oba Femi. Small guy, high flyer, complete opposite of Oba Femi. Not many people can jump around as much as Javon Evans. Not as many people are as bouncy as Javon Evans, as he likes to call it. So I'd be down for it. But yeah, that's where we're at with the North American Championship. Amazing job to both guys involved. I look forward to where both guys go next. The NXT Women's Championship match. Roxanne Perez defeating Jada Parker in yet another banger by Roxanne Perez. Jada Parker 1,000% rose to the occasion here. And this was a bold choice. This was a very bold choice that NXT made in having Jada Parker have this opportunity. They literally had this gauntlet match where it was every other woman who hasn't had a shot at Roxanne yet. And Roxanne fought pretty much everybody there was to fight that was ready to fight for the women's world title in NXT. Thea Hale, Lyra before she got called up. What did we see at what was the match that we saw? With the match of Heatwave. Everybody that she could have fought. Oh, that was Lola Vice. Everybody in NXT that's ready for the fight against Roxanne had that fight already. And everyone that was left was in this gauntlet match. And I was like, man, this is like... They have like 2 choices that could possibly get a good match out of it. And it's not even guaranteed. And Jada Parker was one of them. And Jada Parker got the win. And I was so excited because Jada Parker has been doing nothing but impressing me on NXT television. And I'm sure she's impressing many others as well. I know for a fact she is. And she proved to the world that she belongs in NXT at this level of competition. Matching Roxanne Perez at every moment. And man, Roxanne Perez I haven't given her enough credit. Since she's been the NXT Women's Champion, she has been hard carrying this NXT Women's division. She's the perfect person to have atop the NXT Women's division right now at this moment. And a fun stat that was pointed out by Vic Joseph, actually. With this title defense against Jada Parker at NXT No Mercy, Roxanne Perez is now second only to Asuka for NXT PLE wins. And we know that legendary reign with the NXT Women's Championship that Asuka had and how many title defenses she had with that title. So for Roxanne to be second to Asuka, that's pretty crazy, especially with how competitive of a women's division NXT is now. I don't remember exactly how competitive it was during Asuka's time, but I feel like they were still in the phases of building the division and building competition. So there were less options for Asuka at the time. It was whoever they could pull in and sign quick and get in to face Asuka, and then they move on to the next one. You know what I mean? That's what it felt like, at least at the time. Now, speaking of new signings popping up to face the women's champion, right after Roxanne Perez defeats Jada Parker, the lights start going down. The music cuts out. And then a new song plays. Smoke comes out from the Tron, and Julia's name pops up on the Titantron, and Julia finally makes her way out to NXT. Now, we saw her first at NXT Stand and Deliver in the crowd with William Regal, with Rossy Ogawa. If you're not familiar with Julia, she was a big women's wrestler in Stardom, and she ended up moving over into Rossy Ogawa's new promotion, Marigold, that he's starting up over there in Japan. And part of the reason why she popped up in April and hasn't been seen since is because first she was finishing up her duties there with Rossy Ogawa. NXT and WWE have a very good relationship with Rossy Ogawa and his promotion over in Marigold in Japan that he's starting. So they allowed him to have Julia for the next few months to help get that promotion off the ground. I believe Julia also got injured for a brief period of time, so she was recovering from a minor injury, and she's finally ready, it looks like. And I think at NXT Halloween Havoc, which was announced as an arena show in Hershey, Pennsylvania, I think we're going to get the next match for Roxanne Perez against Julia. And I think that Julia is going to defeat Roxanne Perez there and hold the NXT Women's Championship for a very long time. There is potential, because hear me out. NXT has Julia now. You know, we have signed Stephanie Vaquer. We've signed Delta. 3 massive names for the NXT Women's Division that haven't even wrestled a single match yet. And we're going to have Julia come in here and hold the women's title, and then we're going to have we have all these women that have been in NXT for a long time. We're going to have Julia cut the line and win the belt and then hold it for a really long time. Roxanne might even stay in NXT for a little bit to try and get the title back and then go up to the main roster. To me, it almost seems like Julia's kind of cutting the line there, and it's a little too bloated, especially with Stephanie Vaquer and Delta coming in a short period of time. So what if you had Roxanne beat Julia? And then Julia just, goes to the main roster to make room for Stephanie Vaquer and for Delta. There's also the possibility of Jordynne Grace. Like Jordynne Grace, her TNA contract was rumored to be expiring in January. And here we are in September, and apparently she just tweeted recently, it's time to play the game. So she could be coming to WWE. But there's more of a chance that she goes to the main roster with that tweet, referencing Triple H. So she could skip NXT. She's already wrestled in NXT for the NXT Women's Championship. So it makes sense, right? But so for that, she could skip to the main roster. But what if she doesn't? That NXT Women's division, it's deep enough. And we're about to bring in 3, potentially 4 amazing world-class female athletes in this division of stars that have been homegrown talent that are slowly starting to build momentum and build their way up higher. And we're going to have 3 to 4 international superstars come in and just cut the line. I don't know if I want that. I don't know the skill level of Delta very well. I know Stephanie Vaquer a little bit more, and I know Julia a little more than that. And I think Julia could be main roster ready off the bat. So this could be a red herring, but we'll see. I think the more likely scenario is that Julia defeats Roxanne Perez, and we carry on the story that we were trying to carry and to portray a few months back when she first came to NXT. Now, the main event of the evening For the NXT Championship, we had Trick Williams as the special guest referee, as Ethan Page retained his championship against TNA's Joe Hendry. Think about that, y'all. We had a TNA wrestler in the main event of an NXT pay-per-view challenging for the NXT Championship. And he's not even signed to the company. That's insane to think about. He had a chance to get the NXT Championship before the TNA Championship. And he was in that gauntlet match that they had at the last pay-per-view. Not Emergence, but the one before that. I think it was Slammiversary. I forget the name of it, but it was the one where Nick Nemeth won the title. But wow. I will say I'm glad that they didn't do what I thought they were going to do. Because initially, I kind of had this crazy thought, that Joe Hendry could beat Ethan Page, but then Trick Williams turned heel on Joe Hendry. And I'm so glad they didn't do that, because Trick is so over too. Trick and Joe Hendry are the two big faces on NXT right now. And so to have Trick Williams still face and Joe Hendry still a massive face. Joe Hendry didn't lose much in defeat. So what happened was there was a moment where Trick's back was turned, dealing with an extra referee and all this, and Ethan Page hit a low blow on Joe Hendry that Trick didn't see, and then he hit the Ego's Edge and pinned Joe Hendry for the win. The finish was kind of okay, I guess. The finish made sense. It was in line with Ethan Page's character. It prevented Joe Hendry from winning the title, because I had a feeling Joe wasn't ready for that yet, and they weren't ready to put the title on Joe Hendry just yet. I think they will, but just not yet. And to me, all signs are still pointing to Trick Williams winning that title back from Ethan Page on the first episode of NXT on the CW. Maybe the second one, because I know they're having 2 big arena shows for the first 2 weeks. So maybe it'll be the second week, because I know sometimes they do like a TV special that lasts 2 weeks. So maybe it's the main event of the second week. But I don't know. It seemed to me like if they didn't go with Joe Hendry here, then it's got to be Trick on that CW premiere a couple of weeks. And Ethan Page, once again, doing great work as NXT champion. He's a phenomenal, snarky heel. The moment after he won, where he's kneeling on the mat and he's looking at Trick and he's like, I won, huh? Crazy thought. You probably didn't think I was going to win, did ya? And Trick's just like, fuck, man, fuck. I got to listen to this guy again. You know? That's the way to do it, man. But then this interesting finish, interesting choice. I would have probably just left the show ending at Ethan Page gloating to Trick about winning the title and retaining the title and him celebrating, but then they had Pete Dunne come out and attack Trick. Why? Why would you end it like that? That was so mid. It was such a mid ending when they could have just ended it at, oh man, Ethan Page just got the best of Joe Hendry and took advantage of the ref shenanigans and Trick being distracted. Oh man, now what are we going to do? Who's going to take the title off of this guy, you know? But instead they had Pete Dunne just come out and attack Trick. And I love Pete Dunne as much as the next guy, but just why, man? I don't get that. If they were going to do that spot, they probably should have had it happen either during the match to allow for the second ref to come out like they did, or they could have done that. They could have done that. They could have had Pete take out Trick and then eventually have another ref count the pin for either Joe or Ethan. They could have even had Joe Hendry win the title, have the ref count the pin for Joe Hendry, win the NXT title, and then say, no, he wasn't the originally sanctioned referee. Trick got taken out by Pete. Let's put the title back on Ethan Page. And then you have the story of Joe and Trick and Page and Pete Dunne all fighting for the title going into the CW. Which might be the match we get, by the way. We might get a Fatal 4-Way there. Because it looked like Pete was kind of eyeing Ethan Page a little as well. But yeah, if that was the ending they wanted to go for, I would have argued to swap the NXT and title match with the NXT women's title match for that main event. Ending the show with Julia coming out would have been way bigger and way better than ending the match with a pretty ho-hum, pretty low-energy Pete Dunne attack on Trick. But y'all, that's how we ended the shows Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy. And NXT No Mercy, I almost want to say it edges out Bash in Berlin a little bit for me, but I don't really think so yet. I think I got to sit on it. I think as a show as a whole, NXT was a little bit more story focused, and I tend to lean more into more story focused wrestling than just wrestling focused wrestling. But I'm going to give NXT No Mercy a B as well, because there were some kind of down moments. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give it a B-. I'm going to give it a B-. I think Bash in Berlin edges it out just a little bit. I think NXT No Mercy is carried by that tag team title match. I think it's carried by the debut of Julia. I think it's carried by Obafemi and Tony D'Angelo. And that entrance of Joe Hendry, man, and that big arena crowd singing his song, waving their hands from side to side, clapping, all of that. All of that was phenomenal. It felt like another big show for NXT. NXT is continuing to cook, y'all. If you're not watching NXT right now and you're watching Vacant Wrestling, I'm telling you, you gotta watch NXT. You really gotta watch NXT because they are absolutely cooking. It's not what 2.0 was to begin with. And it's not what Black and Gold was either. It's different. But it's getting closer and closer to that OG Black and Gold feeling. I promise you, I think you'll enjoy it. There's something for everybody, truly, on NXT. So that was this past weekend in wrestling. Now let's talk about this week, what we have coming up. So on Raw this week, tonight actually, we have Zelina Vega against Shayna Baszler of the Pure Fusion Collective. Obviously, Zelina returned this past week on Raw, and she's trying to get revenge on the Pure Fusion Collective for taking her out of action. That being Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and Sonya Deville. So intrigued to see where that goes. Not something crazy I'm excited for. Another one I'm super not crazy excited for is the Alpha Academy versus American Made. I'm hoping this eventually does butt into a storyline, a deeper storyline. I know they were kind of tied up with Chad Gable in the Wyatt Six, but it's interesting to see. Maybe they have Wyatt Six interfere in this match, in fact. So this is going to be Alpha Academy, Otis Tozawa and Maxine against American Made, which is the Creeds and Ivy Nile, in a 6-person mixed tag. So that should be interesting. We're going to get a women's tag team championship celebration with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. And we're also going to get a number 1 contenders match. Winners get Bianca and Jade for the titles. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, the former champions, against Io Sky and Kairi Sane of Damage Control. So we could get the same match. We could run back the Bash in Berlin match, or we might get a new match between Bianca and Jade and Io and Kairi. Who knows? I'm kind of pulling for Io and Kairi here. I think it'd be kind of fun. Two triple threat matches for the Intercontinental Championship tournament that we've had going on Raw the past week and this week now. It's past 2 weeks, I should say. Wow, words. The first 2 triple threat matches we had this past week on Raw were Jey Uso defeating Karrion Kross and Kofi Kingston, and Pete Dunne defeating The Miz and Xavier Woods. Almost forgot. So those 2 moved on to the Fatal 4-Way Finals match that's going to happen next week on the Raw season premiere. The other 2 participants will be determined tonight. Now, those matches are Dominic Mysterio of the Judgment Day versus Ilya Dragunov versus Dragon Lee. So I think Damien's going to cost Dominic there. I don't think Dragon Lee is ready for this match yet. So I'm going to go with Ilya for the win in that one. And then Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser versus Bronson Reed. Now, selfishly, I would really love Ludwig Kaiser to get another match, another big win, and move on. But it's Bronson Reed. It has to be Bronson Reed. He's been destroying everybody. Unless for some reason they're like, nah, Bronson, you went too far with Braun Strowman. We're going to take you out of this matchup and replace you. Then I might be leaning more toward Ludwig Kaiser. But I think Bronson Reed's going to get the win there. Unless maybe Braun Strowman comes back and interferes and costs him the match. I don't really know. But yeah, so that would lead to a fatal 4-way match on the Raw season premiere a week from now between Jey Uso, Pete Dunne, Ilya Dragunov, and Bronson Reed. And at that point, I'm between Jey and Bronson. I almost want Bronson because they need to capitalize on this hot streak, and also to cool off this whole Jey Uso can't win a big match thing, because Jey Uso can't win big matches. I mean, let's be real. He hasn't won a title match that he's had since the Bloodline. And he arguably deserves a title, but they're just not ready to pull that trigger yet. They might be at some point, but it is not right now, in my opinion. So that's Monday Night Raw. Looking at NXT, we're going to have a triple threat number 1 contenders match for the NXT tag team titles. It's going to be Gallus, the Rascals, and Hank and Tank. Hank and Tank got a big win over the Good Brothers past week. Gallus also has been doing good work feuding with Javon Evans, and they were feuding with Joe Hendry for a minute. But I think that's the Rascals all day. I think it's got to be the Rascals. It could be Hank and Tank, but I think it's the Rascals. We got Oro Menza versus Lexus King. Fine. It's an undercard NXT match. I don't really know who wins that. I'm pulling for Lexus King, but it might be Oro. Who knows? And we're also going to get Trick Williams versus Pete Dunne in a one-on-one match. And I hope Pete wins because he needs momentum, but I think that Trick's going to get him in that match, and Trick will get the win there. So that's NXT. Meanwhile, on SmackDown this week, we are getting the return of Giovanni Vinci, which is pretty cool. I'm excited to see how he fares on SmackDown on his own. But we're also going to get a triple threat tag match for the WWE Tag Team titles as well, between the Bloodline, the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga Tongaloa, My King, My Tribal Chief, Tongaloa. They're defend against the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, and DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. That one's easy. Bloodline's got to retain there. But that's what we got coming up this week. So be sure to tune in to all of our live streams we'll be having this week. We'll be live streaming hopefully tonight for Raw, and maybe tomorrow night for NXT, depending. But Friday Night SmackDown is also a possibility. I'm not quite sure. I have some stuff going on this week, but I'm going to try to be live as much as I can. But if I'm not live, I apologize in advance. But y'all, that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode of Vacant Wrestling Podcast. We'll go a little short this week. You know, it's been an abbreviated week because we're kind of getting back on schedule after posting late last week. And we had some big matches to talk about, thanks to Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy. For those of you that tuned in to the live stream on TikTok and YouTube to Bash in Berlin, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We saw some awesome engagement, awesome growth. The first few donations to the channel that were not from a friend of mine that hit our account. So thank you so much. That was amazing, and it'd be awesome to see y'all there too. It'd be a great community that we're building over there, and we hope to see you all there as part of it. So let's plug everything now while we're on that subject. So you can follow us on YouTube right here. If you're watching a video on us on YouTube right now in video format, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, Vacant Wrestling. Also, like this video. Be sure to share it with all your friends. Tell them that you found this really cool, nerdy guy and his friends that talk about wrestling just like you, and you want to be talking wrestling with them too. So share it all with your friends. Go like the YouTube shorts that we post on here every once in a while. Follow us on TikTok at Vacant Wrestling. Follow us on Instagram at vacant.wrestling. Follow us on Twitter at Vacant Wrestling. We post on all of those channels, various takes on Twitter. We post Instagram Reels. We post TikToks all the time. We go live on TikTok sometimes, as well as live on YouTube. And if you're watching or listening, if you're listening from Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere in audio format, thank you so much for seeking us out here. And be sure to follow us on all those other visual format accounts as well, if you haven't already, and get engaged with the Vacant Wrestling community. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in this week. My best in wrestling this week has to be the match between Gunther and Randy Orton. It was absolutely freaking fantastic. A close second being Julia, because I'm so excited to see what she does for the NXT women's division and the women's division as a whole in WWE. So y'all, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Take it easy, and we'll see you all very soon. Peace.